Welcome to the Saturday Slam and Jam here on the Athletic NBA Daily. So glad to have you with us on today's show. We are breaking down the most improved player odds. Zena Keita will join us to talk Warriors, and then Trevor Lane joins the show to talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. But before that, Alex, please tell me about all the NBA headlines this week.
Well, Andrew, the top story this week was what went down in the 76ers locker room. After a loss to the Memphis Grizzlies, Joel Embiid confronted Marcus Hayes, a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Hayes had written a recent article about Embiid missing games, and to really hammer the point home, Hayes thought it'd be a good idea to mention Embiid's son and his deceased brother. Now, you're probably thinking that actually sounds like a terrible idea, Alex, and you'd be right. It absolutely was a terrible idea, and Joel let him know that in the locker room, a conversation that eventually got physical with Embiid shoving Hayes, all leading to a 3-game suspension for Embiid. Nobody does it quite like the Sixers, do they? Just a never-ending supply of things you've never seen or heard before. And unfortunately, the Embiid suspension isn't even the worst news for the Sixers this week, because not only did they lose Tyrese Maxey for weeks with a hamstring injury, they are 1-6, dead last in the Eastern Conference. They're already 7 games back of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are officially the last undefeated team in the NBA. This week, the Cavs beat the Bucks in back-to-back games by 3 total points. In the second game, Darius Garland scored 39 to best Damian Lillard's 36. As of Friday, the Cavs are 9-0, second-ranked offense, fifth-ranked defense. By the time you hear this episode, though, maybe the Cavs will have finally lost, because their opponent on Friday night is none other than the Golden State Warriors, who got Steph back this week and have won 5 games in a row. The Warriors have a point differential of plus 15.8, largest in the league. And while maybe you could quibble with the quality of their opponents through the early part of the season, wasn't the case this week, as the Warriors went into Boston and beat the defending champs 118-112. Now, Steve Kerr was showered with boos throughout the game as a result of his despicable behavior at this summer's Olympics when he only played the Celtics, who were good. Jason Tatum got back at Kerr and continued his strong start to the season by scoring a game-high 32 points. But in the end, it was Steph Curry's 27, 7, and 9 that got the win. Now, from a 2-time MVP to a 3-time MVP, Nikola Jokic continues to dominate the league, and this week, he helped the Nuggets get an improbable and much-needed win over the previously undefeated Oklahoma City Thunder. And I say improbable because Jamal Murray was out with a concussion, Aaron Gordon out for weeks with a calf injury, which meant that Jokic was playing with the Calvin Booth All-Stars, and for at least one night, all those late first and second round picks came through for Booth because each played a key role in the win, including Peyton Watson blocking the potential game-tying shot from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the final seconds. The Nuggets are 5-3 and have won 3 in a row. Now, that win opened up the top spot in the West, which was quickly filled by the Phoenix Suns, who are now 7-1 and have won 6 games in a row. Last week, we talked about how maybe this was the kind of weird year where a player like Phoenix's Ryan Dunn might be able to win Rookie of the Year, but not so fast, because this week, the rookies came to play. First, we had Keyshawn George, the other Wizards rookie, put up 26-4 with 6 threes against the Warriors. He took 17 threes in a game as a rookie. Do you know how many times that has happened where a rookie takes 17 threes in a game? It's happened twice. One was George. Do you know who the other rookie to do it was? No, you have no idea. I could give you 1,000 guesses, and you will never utter the words Armani Brooks, because that is the answer. He somehow took 18 threes in a game once upon a time as a rookie. Now, we also had Zach Edey having his first big breakout game this week, 25-12 with 4 blocks against Brooklyn. And then, in what is likely the most impressive game by a rookie so far this season, number 1 overall pick, Zachary Richasset put up 33, 7-3 with 3 steals, 2 blocks, and 6 three-pointers. And he did it all in a very impressive win over the Knicks. With that game, Richasset, God, man, I have trouble with his name. Richasset, how do you say it, Andrew?
Richasset.
Again?
Risashay.
Risashay.
There it is. There it is.
Lordy. Reese Hashea now leads all rookies in points per game with 12 per game. And those are the top stories this week, Andrew.
Man, what a week it was. Let's take a look at our BetMGM line of the week, brought to you by BetMGM. It's the most improved player. So in the preseason, everybody thought Victor Wembanyama, which I would have been just totally miffed if we gave this thing to Victor Wembanyama. Just makes no sense. Wemby had the best odds. J-Dub from the Thunder second. Jonathan Kuminga third. Jalen Johnson fourth. Now, Al, one of your favorites, Jalen Johnson, favorite at a plus 600. R.J. Barrett. Shout out to R.J. Barrett. He's had a really nice season so far, plus 700. LaMelo Ball. Boy, do you see his name on the preseason here? On the preseason odds?
These people know he was an all-star, right? They know he was an all-star once upon a time.
That's a weird one. But he's had a great season. And then Grady Dick, who I think we're going to talk about here a little bit later on here, is fourth in odds for most improved player. Anybody that you like so far, Al? Any names that pique your interest?
Obviously, I still like Jalen Johnson, although I will say, like, at least for me, that was a little expected. What we've seen from Grady Dick, which I'm going to talk about him in a bit, compared to what I was thinking about him at the end of last season, that's kind of how I feel the most improved player should be. With the caveat that, yes, he's a second-year player. You expect second-year players to get better. But the jump he's made from first year to second year feels even beyond that, like what you would expect. So I'm kind of looking at him. I think RJ Barrett's a really interesting name.
It is.
This Raptors team, like, they're not good, but I have watched too many Raptors games at this point. They are so competitive. They've been competitive in every single game I've watched of them this season. Really entertaining team. And so that would be really interesting if RJ Barrett kind of establishes this narrative as the most improved player, because I feel like people have just been so down on him throughout his career. So that would be an interesting story.
Yeah, I worry about that one in that, like, is he improved, or is this someone has to score the points thing with the Raptors?
It's possible. Yeah, it would be nice if they could win a few more games. I mentioned that they are very competitive, but they're also 2-7. So
a very competitive 2-7.
Very competitive.
Another competitive team, the Detroit Pistons. Jaden Ivey has made a leap as a scorer. Yeah, he's up from 15 points to almost 20 points per game. He's shooting the three ball well. He's at 5 attempts, 41%. He's looking great. I mean, there were times last year where you hear murmurs from people around the league saying, like, I don't know if this guy is really very good at all. And he's starting to answer that call a little bit. He's been pretty good for the Pistons so far.
And you can get him at plus 1,700 still.
You can get him on BetMGM. Go get him.
Okay, so that
Alex,
brings us... Yeah.
Favorites. Let's talk about our favorites of the week. That's what you were about to do. I'm going to just throw us into it. Let's do our favorite quotes of the week. Al, what was your favorite quote of the week?
Favorite quote of the week? Listen, we're going to talk to Trevor Lane later about a very entertaining JJ Redick post-game press conference.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about a lot of things, but we're not going to talk about this quote, which was another quote that happened in that same press conference. Quote,
oh boy.
And he was referring to Gabe Vincent. It would be nice if a guy could play 18 minutes and not shoot 0 times. Followed up by, he mentioned that's not a knock on him, which, like, how is that not a knock on him? But I appreciate, I love how blunt JJ Redick has been through this early part of the season.
Yeah.
And I think any NBA fan who's been, especially a part of like a rebuilding team, like, there's always a guy on your team who goes out there and you feel like he's just getting cardio. It's like, how did you play 20 minutes and not shoot the basketball once?
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of nice to hear a coach voice that displeasure as well. Because I have watched players like that too, where I'm just like, what were you doing out there? What are we doing? How did you shoot the ball 0 times? What happened?
Well, so it's funny because JJ's talked about the bench group quite a bit and how like their job is not to score. Like, they have their scorers in the starting lineup. Like, the job of the bench is to come in and like change the just like change the environment on the court with their defense, which has also not been happening, by the way. Like the Lakers defense has not been good. So it's just funny to hear, because he's saying like, yeah, that's not really what we want them to do, but also
there's a limit.
Like,
don't go too far.
Yeah. Don't go too far with this. My favorite quote was this one. It's from Steve Kerr and Steph Curry. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard this already, but I just think this is actually really cool. Steve Kerr said after the game, Anthony Slater, our own Anthony Slater, who was on the NBA Daily earlier this week, talked about how the beauty of Steph is that I can yell at him. And then Steph Curry later said, I want to be coached just like everybody else. This whole week, and we're going to talk more with Zena Keita about the Warriors shortly, it just gives me shades of Greg Popovich and Tim Duncan. You know, like those two it just feels similar in that, one, they just have continued success, you know, at times where people don't necessarily think they're going to. And a lot of it just kind of stems from this like top down that exists with Steve Kerr and Steph Curry. And I think it truly is something special. It's something that doesn't come around a lot. I mean, honestly, I think like the Pop and Tim Duncan one is probably the last one that we can kind of turn back to say like, oh, I think this was like that. This doesn't really happen. One, like players don't stay in one spot like this, and coaches don't stick around this long typically for a franchise. And so like there's a uniqueness that exists there, but just the relationship, you know, between those two, I think is probably a big reason as to why they've gotten off to this great start, is that Steph Curry has ultimate respect for Steve Kerr. And like in just these quotes, they seem small, but to me that they are very indicative of like why there is continued success around the Warriors. So I just kind of gravitated toward that.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this before, but one of my favorite things about the NBA is when you get these types of situations where a player's with a team for his entire career, where he has these long-term relationships with people in the organization. I just think it's cool. Okay, that brings us to our favorite stat this week. Andrew, what was your favorite stat?
This one comes from Nightbear49 on Reddit. He posted that Anthony Edwards has made the third most three-pointers through his team's 8 games in a season in NBA history. All the other ones, all the top 5 are just Steph Curry. But you have Anthony Edwards here, which I just think is so interesting, because when Ant was coming into the league, there were a lot of questions about his shooting. Like his shot selection, one, and then just his ability to be efficient too. I mean, at Georgia, he took a lot of threes. He took 7 attempts per game at Georgia, which is a lot in college, and only made 29% of those threes. This season, he's shooting 11.1 attempts per game at 46.1%. I mean, that is just outrageous. And his previous high was 35% on 8.4 attempts per game, and that was in his second year. But that to me is such a huge deal for this Timberwolves team, to have Ant, who is just like this 3-point monster. And it's funny that he's doing this, and he's been like the best 3-point shooter in the NBA so far this year. And that's not even like the thing that if somebody were to tell me like, hey, tell me about Anthony Edwards' game, I don't know that the threes would be the first thing that I would say about him. You know, I talk about his athleticism, his ability to get to the hoop, the way that he is just a monster in transition. But the fact that he has this, and it's at like literally the top level in the NBA right now, just shows you like the ceiling that is rising for Anthony Edwards, and like the future that's bright for this Timberwolves team. It's pretty astounding, because obviously teams are pushing the limit on 3-pointers right now. And, you know, Anthony Edwards is kind of leading that just on an individual level. But I thought that was pretty wild. I mean, for him to be on this list, kind of smushed between other like Steph Curry records, is just interesting to me, and just something that caught my eye.
Well, and also because, you know, when that trade went down with Randall, a lot of things you heard from people who were concerned about the trade is like, the shooting is going to take a step back. Like, yes, DiVincenzo is going to break something, but that starting lineup with Julius Randle not really thought of as like a great 3-point shooter. One thing I didn't hear anyone say is, what if Ant just took the same amount of threes as he and Cat took last year combined? Because that's almost what he's doing. They took 12 threes combined last season. And he's taking 11.1 now. Like, that is wild. He's basically made up that volume that they lost from Cat single-handedly.
Don't worry. It is so bizarre.
My favorite stat this week. Well, first, an honorable mention. I want to mention Domantas Sabonis because he put up a triple-double, but he did it while having 0 turnovers, 0 missed field goals, and 0 missed free throws. He also had 0 fouls. It was just one of those hyper-efficient triple doubles. Well, actually, not one of those. It's never happened before. No one's ever done what I just described. And the Kings have gotten into a nice little groove, and they're shooting up the West. So they're a very fun team. But my favorite stat this week, because I just saw it, Jackson Frank posted this on Twitter. The NBA's top 5 offenses this season are 1st, 16th, 20th, 23rd, and 3rd in 3-point attempt rate. And I just thought that was very interesting because we have definitely heard a lot of people talking in the early going. Oh, everyone plays the exact same. You got to shoot a ton of threes. You have to be one of the teams that shoots the most. Everyone's trying to be like Boston. And meanwhile, yes, all these teams are shooting more threes than teams were shooting back in, 2010 or whatever. But you can still have a very good offense and not be a top 5 team in 3-point attempt rate. And so I think that's encouraging for a lot of teams. And by the way, I think the team that's 3rd is Minnesota, which we were just discussing. Yeah. Okay, favorite player this week. I mentioned him earlier, Grady Dick. He has been incredibly fun to watch this season. He's currently averaging 20 points per game, which leads all sophomores. He already has 2 30-point games under his belt. On offense, he's super active, running off screens, getting to his spots. He's shooting a ton of threes, over 7 per game, but he's also showing off a real smooth pull-up midi. Even his defense seems to be improving. Our good friend S from the NBA Daily Pod, he tweeted out a great video detailing some of the strides Grady's made on the defensive end, using his length to get in passing lanes, pull off chase down blocks. For a guy that I just was not really thinking about that much heading into the season, to be quite honest, he has been a blast to watch. And one thing I'm interested in watching going forward is his rim finishing, because he was at 60% last season, which isn't great. He's under 50% currently through the early part of the season. This is per cleaning the glass. His efficiency is really being boosted by the fact that he's shooting 67% on long twos right now, which is obviously absurd. So as that number starts to come back down to earth, I'm wondering, A, can he develop more as a finisher around the basket? And then B, how good of a shooter can he be? He's been solid from 3, shooting a little under 36%, but he looks like he could be a dead-eye shooter. I mean, that shot is so smooth. He gets it up so quick. So I just kind of want to see how his game develops over the rest of the season. But super impressed through these first 8 games or whatever.
Yeah, he's been really good, and his size as a shooter is pretty special. Is pretty special on the wing, and he's just a goofball. And I kind of I just like that about him. He's just an absolute goofball. My favorite player this week, Benedict Mathurin. Al, on October 28th, the Pacers fell to 1-3, and Paolo Banchero posted a 50-burger on this Pacers team. And Ben Mathurin really didn't play. He played 13 minutes. He had 5 points, 2 boards. But since then, Ben Mathurin has been on a tear. He had 30, 11, and 4 in a win against the Celtics. He had 19, 6, and 3 against the Pels in a loss, 16, 7, and 3, and a surprising win against the Mavs, and then 20, 11, and 1 against the Orlando Magic in a win. Mathurin is scoring in a variety of ways, including he's shooting 70% in the restricted area so far this season. And also, he's got a little bit of an attitude. There was a kerfuffle with Jordan Hawkins post-game against the Pelicans, and honestly, I kind of like to see some kerfuffles, and Mathurin will give those to you. Mathurin is one of the reasons why the Pacers roster still has some upside, and he's shown in the last 4 games that he's really worth investing in. He's just a really fun and dynamic player that I think because of the injury last year got a little bit lost. He wasn't a part of that Pacers run to the Eastern Conference Finals, so you forget about him a little bit. But he in these last 4 games, he has really shown that he's a player that, can help this Pacers team take the next step. So I've really enjoyed watching Ben Mathurin.
You mentioned his game against the Pelicans. The Pelicans just announced that Jordan Hawkins has a low back strain, is going to be out 1 to 2 weeks.
Dude,
what is what?
It's
like
that
them
team?
and the
I don't know. Like them and the Sixers are having like this like strange competition between the two of them. Like who can have the weirdest, most awful beginning of a season?
That is brutal.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Speaking of panicking, we panicked about them last week, I believe. Andrew, who's been your favorite team to panic about this week? I'm realizing, by the way, with this category, like if we're doing 2 a week, just figuring out the math in my head, we're eventually going to have to panic about every single team. Will we be able to panic about like the Celtics for a week? Will we have to go back? Will we have to start panicking about specific players, Andrew? I don't know. I still feel good about it. There's still plenty of panic in my tank, but I'm starting to think ahead. Okay.
I mean, listen, Sam Presti says the sky falls on every single team 2 or 3 times every season. So
that's right.
We're gonna have our time to panic about everybody. Al, this week it's the Orlando Magic, who've dropped 5 straight. They're 3-6 right now. Their last 4 games, they're 98.2 offensive rating, dead last in the league. They're 11th in defensive rating. They're 29th in net rating, with only the putrid Utah Jazz behind them. Out from the corners, they're shooting 23%. From above the break, they're shooting 23%. From the mid-range, they're shooting 32%. In the paint, they're 41%. And in the restricted area, they're like a fine 62%. The offense is just non-existent. They have their 2021 draft picks leading the way with Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs doing the best they can. Franz averaging 26-5 with Suggs at 18-5-5. Suggs has actually been really good for them. They're doing all they can. But Al, do you know who their 3rd leading scorer is without Paolo right now?
Okay, so Franz, and then you mentioned Suggs. So 3rd.
Who's 3rd?
Who would be 3rd? I don't know. I'm assuming it's someone weird, so I'm going to say Goga.
Goga's 4th, actually.
Okay, all right.
Mo Wagner is 3rd in scoring for them. They just frankly cannot score. Like they've got guys like Wendell Carter could be that, but he's dealing with this like plantar fasciitis thing. KCP has not had a great start to the season. Anthony Black is really not that guy. Rookie Tristan Da Silva is playing a ton for them. Jonathan Isaac doesn't play enough minutes for them. One thing is I don't quite understand why Cole Anthony doesn't play, especially now without Paolo in the lineup, because he's somebody that can actually score. And so I don't quite understand what's going on there, but I'd be panicked. Now, the Magic are going to have to get some wins in these next 5 games. They've got the Pelicans that we've mentioned who are dealing with a ton of injuries. They've got the Washington Wizards. They've got the Hornets. They've got the Pacers, and they've got the Sixers. And so they've got to win at least 2 of these games. And like the thing that they have working for them that's in their favor is really something that is really not even within their control. Is just that they're just in the Eastern Conference, in which like everybody's terrible. So there's the Eastern Conference is very forgiving to teams that have stretches like this, unlike the Western Conference. But I'd be worried because without Paolo, I just don't know how they score. I saw them in Oklahoma City earlier this week, and it was really the Thunder didn't even play well, and were able to just cruise to a victory because they just couldn't score. Like they just go through these stretches where they just absolutely cannot get buckets. And so I'm really worried about the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, the Cole Anthony thing's really interesting. I mean, his last 5 games, 2 DNPs. He played 3 minutes, 14 minutes, and 8 minutes in the other 3 games.
Yeah.
Just really strange. And I don't totally know what the story is there. I mean, I did read an article and he was just like Cole Anthony said, I just haven't been playing well. But it still just seems strange because they definitely could use him. The other guy they could use, I don't know if it's going to happen, is Jet Howard. He is getting some minutes. I mean, that is a theoretical scorer, but it just hasn't really happened yet. But this would seem to be the opportunity where you'd want to try him out and see what you got. And I know they are trying him a little bit, but Yeah, it's going to be rough until they get Paul back. My favorite team to panic about, now it may seem obvious, it's the Philadelphia 76ers. But I'll have you know, I picked them before I even knew about the Maxey injury. All right. I was already panicking before that even happened.
There was enough reason to panic even before the Maxey injury. Yeah.
As I mentioned at the top, Sixers are 1-6, last in the East. Since the merger, 103 teams have started the season 1-6. How many of those teams have made the playoffs, Andrew? Take a guess. 103 teams.
30?
Six have made it. Now, that sounds bad.
Six? It's 100 teams, right? You say 103 teams or 106
103 teams? 103 teams.
Oh
Six
my
have
gosh,
made
97 teams didn't make it.
Yeah, it's about 5%. Now, that sounds bad. And listen, it's certainly not good. But the Sixers do have several things going for them. One, as you mentioned, with the Magic, they're in the East. Even at 1-6, they're 2 wins away from being in the play-in. 2, yes, he just got suspended, but Joel Embiid should be back soon, and we all saw how dominant Philly can be with Embiid. And 3, they have ammo to go and make a trade this season. They actually have valuable picks they could trade if the right deal becomes available. When I read that stat, when I read that stat again next year about teams that start 1-6, I fully believe that Philly and Milwaukee will both probably have proven that stat wrong. We'll have 2 more success stories. All that said, this team is bad. And why I'm still panicking, despite all those encouraging things I just said, is that I'm not sure the Embiid-less version of this team is going to be able to hold up their end of the bargain. Like we all knew going into the season, Embiid's going to miss a decent chunk of the season. Philly's going to try to preserve him for the playoffs. But part of that deal was believing that the Maxey PG Sixers could be a solid team night after night when he sat. And I know it's only been 2 games with PG, and now Maxey's out. But this team is not good. I thought Philly had a good offseason around the margins. They added a lot of guys who, in a role player vacuum, made a lot of sense to me. But man, I was watching that Sixers-Clippers game. Some of these lineups are things that I don't want to look at in 2024, Andrew. The idea of a lot of these guys made sense in the summer. They make sense with Joel Embiid. But now I'm having to actually watch them play basketball, and I don't like what I see, okay? Yeah. Even if Embiid comes back, I think this team needs a trade because I just don't feel great about the plan anymore. Because either Embiid's going to have to play more than they hope for, or they've got to do something to inject some life into this roster. I need some youth. I need some athleticism. I need some playmaking. I need something without Embiid. And without just PG and Maxey, because looking at the rest of this roster and seeing how they've played in these most recent games, I'm not totally buying into the idea that when Embiid sits, this team is going to be able to, be a 500 team or something. And so that's why I'm panicking this week.
Yeah, the vibe around the Sixers fan base is appropriate and terrible. So not surprising.
All right, Andrew, it's time for our favorite moment this week. And this week we're going to do something a little different. The Warriors win in Boston felt like one of those important statement games in the early going. And so to help us do a deep dive on the implications of that win, we're going to bring in Zena Keita, who you can hear throughout the week on the NBA Daily. Zena, welcome to Slam and Jam.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I actually wore my orange on behalf of, the special invite. So thank you.
Nice. So excited to have you here, Zena. Before we get to the Celtics game, looking at the season as a whole, how surprised have you been about the Warriors 7-1 start based on how you felt in the preseason?
I actually knew you were going to ask me this question because I feel like that's just been like the theme across the entire NBA. No one saw this coming. I've always been a person, if Steph Curry is on the team and he's healthy, I'm not counting them out. Yeah. And I'm particularly not counting him out when he has his buddy Draymond Green. The way that Draymond handles the defensive end of the things and Steph handles the offensive end, and the two of them kind of act as maestros offensively as well together, I'm not that surprised. I will say what I am surprised by, this defense.
Yeah, totally.
Did not expect them to come out and kind of age backwards in the way that they have shown up on the defensive end. But I'm not too surprised, but I am impressed.
So the last time we saw a Warriors team playing this well in Boston was the finals in 2022. When this team is clicking, they look like a terrible matchup for the Celtics. What do you think it is about this specific matchup that seems to favor the Warriors?
I think it comes down to defense. When you look at the 2022 series versus what we saw the other night against the Celtics, the Warriors' defense has always been their bread and butter against this team, but I think it shows up differently between the two circumstances. Throughout the 2022 series, you think about who was out there playing defense: Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Kevon Looney, players that have been together for a very long time, playing in series for a very long time, adjusting to teams and their schemes for a very long time. So their defense was kind of like a mature defense in that they had each other's backs. They kind of knew where they were going to be on the court. At the same time, like, there was an experience factor to their defense. And then you add on the fact that there was Andrew Wiggins, who was just playing lights out defense on one of their top scorers, Jason Tatum. Now, what's been consistent between 2022 and what we saw the other night against Celtics, Andrew Wiggins still putting on the clamps on Jason Tatum, but the defense, still a factor, differently though. This time it was just about the fact that the Warriors defense today is more active. They're younger. They've got a lot more bodies to throw at the Celtics, so their physicality was increased. And in both cases, the Celtics did not respond well. I'll say the other night, first half was bad for the Celtics. They did respond in the second half. So I think it's always going to be defense as to why they struggle against the Warriors. And then that aspect of experience. Steph Curry said in Game 4, you won't win another game. He didn't lie. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, he has the experience. He's been in these situations. He's been in these type of matchups where he knows how to score against them and he knows how to derail them and really completely confuse everything they're trying to do. So the Celtics don't have that quite just yet. They did win a championship, not taking that away from them, but they don't have the experience factor of how do we derail a team like the Warriors? And I think that that's why they're always such a tough matchup against the Warriors, because that defense is there, but then also that aspect of we've been here before, we know how to do this. That's something that the Warriors have on the Celtics.
So Buddy Hield has been one of the biggest stories of the season, and he continued his hot streak in Boston, hitting 4 threes, including a clutch 3 with less than a minute left. There were some questions about Buddy coming off last year's playoffs. And while he's probably not going to shoot 50% from 3, how sustainable does his play overall look and feel right now for the Warriors?
That is a good question. I just think that if he continues to be used in this offense the way that he's being used, which is being 3, right? Like, in all the other places that he's played, whether it was with the Pacers, whether it was for Sac or the Sixers, I mean, he's been a journeyman. And in every single situation, I don't think he was set up to be able to come off screens and play off ball as well as he's been set up with the Warriors to do so. And when you've got Steph Curry on the other side of the court being a gravitational pull, it allows you to have the space to have some fun. And that's what you're seeing Buddy Hield do. He's playing so energetically and so actively and cutting harder, and everything about what he does, I think, is just a reflection of him playing in this system with a Steph. You can't be in the Warrior system seeing Steph at 36 years old, cutting as hard as he is, setting up his defenders as well as he does off ball, and coming off screens in the way that he does, and not match that energy. It just, you can't. And so I think it's sustainable only as long as teams figure out, who do we want to shut down tonight? Do we want to focus on Buddy Hield? Do we want to focus on Steph Curry? Podziemski takes that mask off. Hopefully the threes go up again. Do we want to focus on Podziemski? Like, I think once teams start to lock in on him, that's when it'll go down. But for now, the way the Warriors are playing loose and free and spacing the floor, and I don't think it's going to stop.
So, Zena, it's time for the big question, because prior to this Celtics game, it seemed like everyone was impressed with Golden State, but they hadn't totally bought into them as a contender. After this win in Boston, are you ready to say that we need to be talking about this team as a legitimate contender?
No. I'm waiting until OKC. I'm waiting for this road trip.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. Last year, the Warriors were the road team. They had a better road record than they did at home. So we know they do play well at, on the road in general. We've seen one team that has been a contender in their lineup. right? Utah, Houston,
Right.
New Orleans,
Yeah.
You can't get too excited about that. Now, Boston, definitely a statement win, but now it's going to be about the sustainability of being statement type of players, because you've got to go play Boston, turn around, play Cleveland, who's undefeated, and then turn around and play OKC. If you can keep this up on the road, okay, now you can't be denied. Right now, there's a little bit of room of it was one game. You can't be denied if you win out this 3. And remember, they go home and play against Dallas.
Yeah.
So it's just
that's a great stretch.
It's a great stretch to really test, are the Warriors who we think they are? Well, some people don't think they are, but who I think they are in being championship contenders, could come out of the West type of thing. I'm going to wait until I see this OKC game and this whole week finish out. Talk to me on Tuesday. We'll see.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that offense go against OKC's defense.
Yes,
to see who wins that matchup. That'll be so much fun.
Right about the offense against Cleveland's backline, right? Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. The Warriors haven't really had a true backline test yet, where there's not just one player that's good in the big position. It's 2, and they play together and they run the floor. Yeah. So we'll see what they do against Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. So looking ahead, what do you see as some obvious needs for the Warriors? And are there any clear trade targets that perhaps are popping up from Warriors fans?
Oh, no. Shut this trade stuff down. I need people to let it go. I appreciated this in the preseason. Draymond Green said, before all of this started, before the 7-1 run and everything, he said he appreciated Mike Dunleavy's patience and his ability to not have a trigger finger. And because he talks about how teams will make a decision hastily and it will set them up for failure 5-10 years down the line. And so this is why I'm looking at the Warriors. You're right now playing 12 people successfully. Yeah. Everyone's getting in and doing good things for the Warriors. There's no need to ruin what's the saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Folks, let's chill on the trade rumors. However, what I do think the Warriors need is for Trayce Jackson-Davis to get an extra year. They need an active big. They need a paint protector. Right now, Buddy Hield is doing a great job of being someone that comes off the bench and gives them an offensive boost. I would be remiss to say that they don't need a wing scorer. It makes sense that they went after Paul George. It makes sense they went after Lauri Markkanen. People have talked about Zach LaVine. It definitely seems that they need that. But right now, I'm impressed with what Andrew Wiggins is doing. I like what Jonathan Kuminga is doing coming off the bench. And Buddy Hield adding on coming off the bench as well. So I'm saying chill. Enjoy this 12-man rotation. I don't know how long it's going to last, but just enjoy the moment right now.
Yeah, and don't kill the depth.
Yeah, their depth is amazing. I mean, you look at the Warriors teams from the last 2 seasons, and some of the guys that they were giving decent minutes to that just aren't in the league anymore. And now they have so much more depth than they had the past 2 seasons.
Yep. Hey, go find Zena Keita right here on the NBA Daily. And then the Athletic Women's Basketball Show. It's a great show. Zena's the host of it. Go check it out. Right after this break, we are going to talk to Trevor Lane about the crazy, crazy week that the Los Angeles Lakers had.
All right, Andrew, it's time for the Wheel of Fandom, the weekly segment where we spin a wheel, it lands on a team, and we become fans of that team for the next week. And last week, we got the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, the Lakers start off the season with 3 consecutive wins over good West teams, the Suns, Wolves, and Kings, but they've dropped 4 of their last 5. They are back to 500 at 4-4. Per Cleaning the Glass, the Lakers have the 12th ranked offense and 24th ranked defense. Andrew, if our favorite team is the Lakers, who is our guest?
We've got Trevor Lane, who is the host of the Lakers Nation podcast and co-host of the Front Office Show. Trevor, how's it going?
Going well. Thanks for having me on, and excited to talk some Lakers. Welcome in to Lakers fandom. Happy to have you.
It has been a wild week to be a fan of the Lakers. I will tell you that, especially last night, and we'll dig into some of that here in just a second. But if you had if we had you on a couple weeks ago, I would say that this would be a very different conversation. Anthony Davis has missed the most recent game. We're recording this before the Friday night game. But has there been any common themes in these 4 losses after the hot start for the Lakers?
Yeah, their transition defense has been a really big problem. I think teams figured that out very quickly, that you can attack the Lakers in transition. And so we saw Memphis do that last night. We saw the Cavs do it. The Pistons did it. A number of teams have been really punishing the Lakers just by pushing the ball down the court, and the Lakers not doing a great job getting back. So that's been a common theme in all of these games. And then just the lack of depth on the team. The bench is just not getting it done right now for the Lakers. They're definitely at a disadvantage when the teams go to their bench. So they're just too thin. That's been another issue for them over this stretch.
So there was a lot of talk during that 3-0 start about new head coach JJ Redick, how much better the Lakers looked. After that Memphis loss, Redick had some very pointed comments about D'Lo's benching, and he also abruptly ended his press conference. So we've already seen some highs and lows already with JJ. What has been the biggest differences you've noticed with Redick as head coach compared to the last couple of Lakers head coaches? And that could be on the court or just as a reporter covering this team.
So I actually asked the question that JJ mic dropped there. and that was quite a moment. But no, I'll tell you this, compared to other Lakers coaches in the past, and I don't know if this will serve him well in the long term, JJ is obsessed with this team, with winning. Like, you could just feel. So I talked to him before the game, right after he had found out that Anthony Davis was not going to play against the Grizzlies. And he was bothered then. Like, you could tell he was not in the greatest of moods in that moment. Not that he was upset about anything, or certainly not mad at Anthony Davis, but he knew that he would be in for, I think, a tough night without AD. And then after the game, he was definitely not in the best of moods. It really, really bothers him when they lose. Infamously, Darvin Ham had a quote last season where he talked about how it's ridiculous that people live and die with every game. I think JJ Redick lives and dies with every play, and it all sticks with him, and he cares very, very much about the outcome of the game. So this man does not like losing at all, and I think that's been one thing that we've seen consistently from him in his time here in LA.
So from your perspective, whenever he had the mic drop moment, after you asked him the question, and the question was about like effort, what was the room like? Were you expecting that to happen? Like, what was going on? Like, walk us through this a little bit.
So I asked him the question, and I did a terrible job asking the question. I was not succinct at all. I rambled way too much. But anyway, I was asking the question. I wanted to find out what's his coaching philosophy on how do you manage players who are not putting forth the effort, in your opinion. And so I wanted to find out that, and that's where he said, I just did, and dropped the mic. Now he walked off, and then he turned and he said again, and he had dropped the mic. So this didn't get picked up, but he turned, and he said, it's the first thing I said to them. So when he said, I just did, that meant I just did, like I just addressed it with the team. That was the first thing I said to them when I went into the locker room. That's what he was talking about when he said, I just did. But at that moment, all eyes turned. I got a bunch of big eyes. All the reporters in the room turned and looked at me, big eyes, and they're all like, "Oh, damn!" So that was, and it was a moment, that was for sure. But yeah, like I said, the context of him, he wasn't upset at the question. He was using that to emphasize that he had just addressed the effort with the team. He didn't want to go into detail about how, which was what my question was about, how he addressed that lack of effort.
Do you feel like Lakers fans appreciate how blunt he is? Because, his response last night about D'Lo was very direct, and even more broadly when he was saying, if we only have, 1 or 2 guys giving the effort, we're not going to be, even if we have 5 guys giving the effort, like we need effort from every single person. Do you think Lakers fans appreciate that kind of bluntness?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think that what drives fans crazy, and we've seen this in the past, and we see this even politically, right? When we look at just what happened with the election and everything, people get frustrated when they feel like they can't get a direct answer, or when they feel like somebody is just kind of dancing around a question and not really addressing the issue. JJ doesn't do that typically. He will give you a very blunt and very direct answer to things. And I think that is appreciated very much, because fans, that's what they want to hear, is they want to find out what is the answer to a question. They don't want the kind of, word salad, if you want to call it that, or like Mitch Kupchak was great as a general manager, did some great things for the Lakers, but he was phenomenal when it came to saying a bunch of things without actually saying anything. Yeah. And that kind of stuff can be frustrating to watch and listen to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just hope all these losses don't kill JJ so much throughout the season, because it seems like a lot. It's like, man, it's early November, and he knows this. Like, he played in the league. Everything just feels like really weighty. Maybe that's too dramatic. I don't know. Is that too dramatic?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think to JJ, he wanted the competition. And now he's like in the thick of it. That was part of what brought him back to coaching. He's in the thick of it, and he is, like I said, he's living and dying with every game. And I don't know what that's going to look like in January or in February when we get into the dog days of the season. I don't know what it's going to look like at that point, but it's very clear that it really gets to him when they lose, when they aren't playing well, when they aren't doing what he expects them to do. And he's very passionate. Let's say that.
Yeah. So Dalton Knecht is already part of the rotation in his rookie season. Even if his minutes haven't always been consistent game to game, what have you thought of his early season play and his potential role on this team going forward?
Yeah, I mean, he's already showing some real talent as a movement shooter, and JJ obviously knows a little bit of something about that. That's exactly what JJ was. So we see the Lakers actually running plays for Knecht, sometimes in high leverage situations. They're running plays to set him up to shoot a three. He does have work to do defensively, and of course he's a rookie, so there's going to be plenty of highs and lows. There's going to be ups and downs night in and night out. But overall, he's been pretty impressive. He is a 3-level scorer. He's got plenty of work to do, but for a guy who's a rookie, who's already, and maybe it speaks to the lack of depth on the team, but the fact that he's already at least a night in, night out player, he's a rotation guy. I think that speaks volumes about the trust that JJ Redick has in Dalton Knecht. And in fact, with multiple players out in last night's game against the Grizzlies, Dalton Knecht got to start, and he pegged Dalton to be the guy to enter the starting lineup. So I think he's impressed so far. Long way to go, but I think he's going to be a pretty good one in the NBA eventually.
So I'm sure Lakers fans are already creating fake trades. The offseason was pretty quiet. Knecht was really the only significant addition. You've seen 8 games now. You mentioned the bench as being a weakness of this team, but more specifically, like, what types of players, like what skills do you think this Lakers team needs?
Yeah, so there's 2 things really that they need, and that is they need a true physical big. Over the summer, JJ Redick used the term bruiser. That's what they're looking for, is a bruiser in the paint. They didn't add that, so it's really, right now it's Anthony Davis. If he's out, it's Jackson Hayes. Christian Koloko made his NBA return after almost 2 years away from the game. He played in last night's game, but so they're very thin at the big position, and so they definitely need that. They could also use a 2-way wing. One of the challenges with this Lakers team, and it was the same last year with this roster, is they have a lot of guys who are one-way players. They're good on the offensive end, but bad defensively, or vice versa. And so they really need to get some guys who can play both sides of the ball. The NBA is so unforgiving now of any players who can't contribute on a particular side. You just get picked on over and over and over again. So they need to get a 2-way wing, probably figure out something with the backcourt combination of D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves that's not quite worked out so well. You mentioned JJ. I had some pretty pointed comments about D'Lo. That has not gone well as to this point. There's just too many overlapping weaknesses between the two of them. So you're going to have to rectify that situation, but a 2-way wing, a bruiser big, and I think this team can make some noise.
Okay, because I know, like, in the offseason, there are rumors like Jeremy Grant. And I feel like traditionally with the Lakers, the rumors are always for a relatively big name. People bring up like Zach LaVine. It sounds like you would prefer them to maybe use their assets to go get a couple guys as opposing to putting all those assets into one player.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that is the lack of depth on the team. I think that you need to add more true NBA. You've got a lot of guys that aren't playing at an NBA level right now. And so you need NBA talent on this team. But also when I look at what pieces are out there. You mentioned Zach LaVine. You're going to have to give up at least 2 starters to get him just to make the math work. Not talking about value, just making the math work gets very, very difficult and very challenging for the Lakers going after some of those bigger names that are out there. I'm sure they'll be interested in guys. They always are. If there's a big name that's attainable, they'll of course try to get into the mix. But I do think I'd look more at like what the Dallas Mavericks did last year, getting Daniel Gafford, getting PJ Washington as that being a more realistic path, getting players of that caliber and adding them to this team.
It feels weird to say this to me, but look, this is LeBron's 7th year with the Lakers, which is, it's kind of mind blowing when you think about it. Which I think ties the longest stint that he's had with any team in consecutive years. So you've seen him play 7 seasons in LA. Where have you seen him slow down at all? Obviously, there's a lot of talk about him almost being 40 years old and all of that, but where have you seen him slow down so far this season?
Sure. Yeah, where it's noticeable has been in terms of the burst. We've seen a number of times where he's been blocked at the rim or not converted a shot at the rim this season. That's been lacking a little bit, that explosiveness. And then defensively, and that started to become a thing last year where, LeBron would need to make a rotation and he just doesn't. He doesn't get out there. We still see stretches where he does. He had that great game against the Sacramento Kings when he absolutely blew up in the fourth quarter and he was hitting everything. We see certain defensive possessions. He did it once against Ja Morant last night where he defended Ja on a particular play and was able to get a stop. He can turn it on. He just can't do it night in, night out. He is still incredible, and it's amazing to see him producing the way that he is at his age, but he's no longer that guy that 82 games of the season, he can put the team on his back, carry them, and then into the playoffs, and he's just unstoppable. He can't do that night in, night out. He can do that a few times over the course of a season. He can turn it on. He can try to really push down on the gas pedal in the playoffs. But on a night in, night out basis, he can't be that just next, top 1A type of guy at this point, even though he can still produce incredibly, again, at 39 points against Memphis, but he doesn't just totally take over and dominate an entire game, with some exceptions, obviously, like that Sacramento game.
Well, Trevor, thank you so much for answering all of our Lakers questions, but it is now time to play Andrew versus the Beat. Our weekly trivia show where Andrew goes head-to-head with NBA beat writer. This week, Trevor Lane from the Lakers Nation podcast and the Front Office Show. So, Trevor, you've played this before. I've come up with 8 questions about the Lakers. Some are easy. 2 are nearly impossible. You're going to pick a number between 1 and 8 and no corresponding question. If you get it right, you'll get at least 2 points. If you get it wrong, Andrew will have a chance to steal for 1, and we'll go back and forth until all the questions have been asked and answered. So to start us off, I just need a number between 1 and 8.
Well, let's go 8. Mob mentality here.
Question number 8. Okay. This is one of the hard ones. It's one of those.
Sounds like this is the impossible one.
We'll see. The 2 hard ones, I do feel like they are gettable. They will sound very hard. Okay. Which teammate has D'Angelo Russell played the most amount of games with during his career, with 173 games played together?
Oh, and it's a Lakers teammate that he's played with.
It's just any teammate throughout his career. So you could have played with them on the Lakers, but he also could have played with them on another team.
Interesting. Let's see. And you said 173 games. And is that including playoffs? I'm trying to do the math here and think about how many. No, that wouldn't quite be enough. Who's somebody that he played with on another team? Austin. It's definitely not Austin. It's definitely not AD. LeBron. Not Rui. Who was on another team with it? That is hard. God, I'll just throw out Anthony Davis because I know AD was remarkably healthy, but I know that's short of the total numbers of that total 170 something.
Well, you're correct on the second point. It doesn't work for AD, but a very good guess. Andrew, any guesses?
I don't know if this guy's played enough is like the only reason why I don't know, but I know he played with them for 2 teams. What about Jared Vanderbilt?
A great guess. You're on the right track. It was someone who played with them both on the Wolves and 1 season with the Lakers. Is Taurean Prince. France.
Weird.
Like it makes sense when you hear it, but it is very hard.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrew.
Number 1.
Question number 1. Dalton Connect, his career high so far is 18 points in a game, Andrew. Who were the last 2 Lakers rookies to score at least 18 in a game? And you get 1 point per correct answer. And I will tell you, one of the answers, just straightforward, it's one guy. The other answer, actually 2 rookies did it on the same night. So if you give me either one of those names, it would count.
2 Lakers rookies did it on the same night?
Yeah, they scored at least 18. So there's actually 3 names here, but you only have to give me 2.
Okay. What about Talen Horton-Tucker?
Andrew, that is incorrect. Trevor, you have a chance to steal. So the last 2 Lakers. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Austin Reeves has got to be one of them.
He's got to be. He is. That is 1 point for Trevor. Can you name one of the other 2 rookies? They did it on the same night.
The fact that it was 2 that did it on the same night makes me think we're going all the way back to like the Kyle Kuzma, Lonzo Ball stuff. So I'm gonna go Kyle Kuzma.
So the correct answer, Mo Wagner and Jonathan Williams.
Oh, I forgot about Mo.
On the same night. All right, so Trevor, you're on the board, 1 up, and you have control of the board.
All right, let's go Lamar Odom. We'll go number 7.
Number 7. Okay, you picked the other hard one. But again,
it was the last 2.
I
thought
think
they were
you can
in
get
there.
it. According to Cleaning the Glass, the Lakers shot 33% at the rim on Wednesday night against the Grizzlies. That is the Lakers' lowest rim percentage in a game since a February 2015 game against the Blazers. Who scored the most points for the Lakers in that game against the Blazers in February 2015?
Alex.
You can get there, I promise.
Is this on me?
Yes. This
okay.
Is, you get
I am going to guess. I'll guess Julius Randle. I would imagine he would miss a lot at the rim, but also grab a lot of rebounds and put them back up.
That is incorrect. Andrew, you have a chance to steal. Most points by a Laker in a random February 2015 game against Portland.
Jordan Clarkson? Like, I don't know.
That's a good guess.
Andrew, that's absolutely correct. Yes!
There it is.
I told you could get there. It's not a crazy answer. It wasn't like someone random, you know. Okay. Andrew, the board is yours. Tie game.
Okay. Number 2.
Question number 2. All right. D'Angelo Russell is 6th all time in 3-pointers made for the Lakers franchise and will likely enter the top 5 this season. Isn't that exciting? Let's name the other 9 players in the top 10 for most 3-pointers made in Lakers franchise history. So how this works, Andrew, you'll give me a name. Then Trevor will give me a name. We'll go back and forth till one of you stumbles. So I already gave you one name, D'Angelo Russell. He's currently 6th on the list. Okay. What's another name, Andrew?
Kobe Bryant.
A great guess. He's number 1. All right. Trevor.
We'll go D-Fish, Derek Fisher.
Another great guess. Number 2. Back to Andrew.
Oh, these questions, you always have to go new era. And I just got done asking him a question about LeBron being there for 6 full seasons. So I'll go with LeBron.
Great guess, Andrew. He's number 3. You guys have gotten 1, 2, 3 in a row. Okay, Trevor, you're next.
I think he was a Laker for long enough. I'll go Byron Scott.
Byron Scott. Number 5 on the list.
Oh my God.
All right, Andrew. This is where it starts getting
Byron
juicy.
Scott. Oh my gosh. He couldn't have taken that many threes per game. So this number's got to be not super high. What about KCP?
KCP, Andrew. He is number 7 on the list.
Oh, dang.
You got it. All right. So back to Trevor. There are 4 names to go. 4 names left.
I mean, it was a different era. But what about Nick Van Exel?
Guess who was number 4? Nick Van Exel. That is correct.
4.
Number 4 all time.
That's higher than I thought.
What a pull. Oh, man.
All right, Andrew, 3 names left, and they are 8, 9, and 10 on the list.
Oh, boy. What about digging back into the Shaq and Kobe days? What about Rick Fox?
Whoo! Rick Fox is number 10, Andrew.
That's
wow. Okay, there are 2 names left. Number 8 and number 9. Could you guys sweep these names? That would be so impressive.
I'm going to go with Big Shot Bob, Robert Horry.
Oh, that's a
Big
good
Shot Bob,
one.
Robert Oria, great guess. He is not on the list, which means Andrew gets the 2 points. The other names, a recent one, Kyle Kuzma, number 8. And number 9, Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones.
He was around long enough. Yep.
Eddie Jones. Okay, Trevor,
Wow.
the board is yours.
All right. Let's go with the younger LeBron. We'll go with number 6.
Number 6. There is one player on the Lakers whose career high in points came during a playoff game. Who is it? So it's a player currently on the Lakers, and their career high for their entire career came during a playoff game.
Player on the Lakers, career high in points came during their entire career came during a playoff game. I'm going to go with Rui Hachimura.
Rui Hachimura, that is incorrect. Andrew, you have a chance to steal.
Oh, that's what I always thought I was going to go with too. This makes me feel like this is some weird player. I don't know. Like, is it Jackson Hayes? Like, I don't know.
It is not. It was a player who had a really great run with a team that came out of nowhere. We're talking about Gabe Vincent with the Miami Heat.
Duh.
Yeah.
Oh, that seems so
like a
obvious.
I was
29
thinking
point game.
as a Laker. I got it.
That seems so obvious.
That was
now.
my mistake there.
Okay, Andrew, you have the lead. You have the board. 3 questions to go.
Number 3.
Question number 3. What is Cam Reddish's career high in points? Now, before you answer, you get to choose who answers first. You can make Trevor answer first, and you can go higher or lower, or you can answer first. And if either one of you gets it exactly correct with the first guess, you do get a bonus point.
27.
Okay, so Andrew has set the bar at 27. Trevor, would you like to go higher or lower? 27. Or Cam Reddish's career high.
We're of like mind because the number that was in my head immediately was 26.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh, now you have a big decision to make. Cam Reddish, career high. So would you like to go higher or lower? Now, based on your potential guess, you might go lower, although do you want to go higher now?
I'll go lower then since I said 26. And not much margin for error there, but that's what I'll go with.
On December 22nd, 2021, Cam Reddish scored a career high 36 points.
Oh my gosh.
30.
Cam, I'm sorry.
That feels unbelievable.
It does feel unbelievable.
Completely unbelievable. He's played well for the Lakers recently.
Yeah, he has been. He has been.
Okay, Trevor, 2 questions left. You still have a shot. Question 4 or 5 are what are remaining.
Let's go 4.
Okay. Anthony Davis has won 5x5 in his career when he played for the Pelicans. While he hasn't had a 5x5 as a Laker, he's been getting pretty close with some of these crazy lines he's had. Who is the only Laker to ever get a 5x5?
I mean, I would think, given the amount of time he played and how dominant, but how long did they record that stat? I'm going back to I think Kareem must have done it at some point.
He probably did. I don't know
But
if
they weren't recording that stat at that point.
Yeah,
huh?
they might have not been recording all of the steals and blocks at that point. So he is not the name that is in StatHead that has been officially recorded. Andrew, do you have any guesses?
Gotta Gosh, I feel like people have been reading these names off because of the Victor Wembanyama
Because of Wemby,
stuff.
yeah. One Laker to do it.
One Laker. Was it Vlade?
Wow.
Did he do it
Andrew,
as a
that is
Laker?
Impressive. It was Vlade.
Yes.
Wow. I would have taken me a long time to land on Vlade on that one.
Yeah, I remember seeing the list. I read through the list
because there's some random names on there. Like,
yeah,
Yusuf Nurkic and Jamal Tinsley are like the classic.
Yeah, the Jamal Tinsley one is wild.
Never makes sense. Okay, Andrew, last question. And this is a fun one. D'Angelo Russell is one of 7 active NBA players who have played for the Lakers, made an All-Star game, but never made an All-Star game as a Laker. Who are the other 6? And you get half a point per correct answer. So these are players who played for the Lakers, made an All-Star game, but didn't make the All-Star game as a Laker.
Didn't make the All-Star game as a Laker, but they're active players currently.
And not necessarily on the Lakers, obviously. They just played for the Lakers at some point. Julius Randle, that's a good guess because it's right. Andrew, any other guesses?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. I feel like there's been a lot of players they've drafted that have moved on and then been good, or that they've traded. Shoot, I can't think of anybody else. I don't know.
All right, Trevor, you want to take a stab at this one?
Well, I know one is Brandon Ingram.
That is correct.
Oh yeah, duh. That's like the same. This is like the same deal, basically.
So they have to be players currently active right now.
Yes, on a roster somewhere.
On a roster somewhere right now. Okay. Let's see. Who else would that be that made an All-Star team, played as a Laker, but not? So we got BI, we got Julius Randle. Lonzo never made it.
I love these. I love this question because, of course, when you hear the answers, you'll just.
I know.
It's
Be outrageously obvious.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. Who else have they had that made an All-Star team eventually? Maybe that they had when they were older. What about DeAndre Jordan?
That is correct.
Okay.
Any other names off the top of your head? There's still 3 names. 3 names to go.
I'm thinking the other direction. I'm starting to get into the guys the Lakers brought in when they were older, but are still hanging around. Who else could that have been? Melo's not playing anymore. Yeah, I'm spacing on the rest of them now.
Oh, you almost said one of their names right there when you said the rust of them. Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook. How did I forget Russell Westbrook? I was just talking about him too.
We're going old, like Dwight Howard, right?
Well, he's not active, but I did have to look up to make sure he's not still on the team.
Russell Westbrook.
Andre Drummond for the Sixers.
Andre Drummond
played for the Lakers once upon a time.
I forgot he made one.
This one is really tough because he got the All-Star when he was very young. On the Nets is Brooke Lopez.
Oh, yeah.
That's a tough one to get.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, congrats. You won Andrew versus the Beat this week.
Well done.
Great job.
Hey, go check out Trevor Lane. The front office show is really fun. You should go check that out, and then go check out the Lakers Nation podcast to stay connected to the Los Angeles Lakers. Trevor, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, Andrew. That was Lakers week, and what a spicy week it ended up being.
Very spicy. It was very good.
Spicy. Okay, so that brings us to the Wheel of Fandom. We're back here. There's now 28 teams remaining. Could be so many different teams. There's so many other teams that we could potentially curse by landing on them.
So many possibilities for cursing.
So let's spin the wheel and see who we get. This week's Wheel of Fandom team will be The Dallas Mavericks.
Ooh, I like
Dallas
this one. This is
Mavericks.
good. The Mavericks. That's a good one in itself. It's good to kind of catch up on the Mavs. They've been very good this season. I talked to a lot of people in Oklahoma City earlier this week and was asking the question, who do you think the second best team in the West is? Because at the time, the Thunder really looked like they were just head and shoulders above everybody.
Yeah.
And this is before like the Warriors win against the Celtics and all that. But a lot of people said Dallas. So,
well, we got a juicy week. Listen
Dallas.
to this.
Yeah.
Friday night, Phoenix at home, ESPN.
Nice. Yeah.
Sunday at Denver, who just beat Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Tuesday at Golden State on TNT. Thursday,
Great week.
at Utah. Okay. So, but those first three, pretty good.
There's a lot of juice in those first three. That's exciting. Cannot wait to dig into Mavs week. Hey, if you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. Just like this one from the Gill Man, Gilster. He says, back on top again. The kings of content and true goats of the game. Andrew and Alex are back. Ball knowers rejoice. Thank you so much for that review. This next one comes from DG7007, quick and informative. So this is more about the NBA Daily, which I'd just like to read anyways, because if you're not listening to the NBA Daily, you should. It's a great show. And this one from DG7007 gives a great review on it. He says, 5 stars. I like the new format of the 20 to 25 minute max during the week and an extended slam on the weekend. The most sports podcasts are no longer than 20 minutes are padded with mindless chatting, arguments, and repetitive opinions. Just give me the headlines and the main stories from the previous night and some brief analysis, and I can get on with my day. He says, I love the throwback theme music with the funky horns. Thank you so much for that review. This next one comes from Spammy J21. It's 5 stars. Great show. I've been listening for a few years now, and I love the Saturday Slam and Jam. Alex's snark when Andrew guesses wrong in trivia always makes me laugh. Insightful, informative, and maybe most importantly, positive. I do miss the theme and the intro, though. I often would listen while I was doing my yard work, and the presence tickled me. Also, and to be 100% honest, I wrote this review to say that Keldon Johnson is in his sixth NBA season, and I couldn't find Spears on Twitter to inform him of this crucial trivia fact check.
I had 2 Spurs fans come at me now. I had another one come at me on Twitter. I was trying to explain to them that I was just going by Basketball Reference. I wasn't counting the first 5 games of this season. I'm aware. Okay, it wasn't a great question. All right. They're not all winners, Andrew.
People are going to keep you on your toes, Al. You know that. You know that's true.
I'm going to make Spurs Week the hardest trivia I can. Whenever that happens.
You're punishing me for these people calling you out. Last one comes from Jen Marco 262. Slam and Jam created a monster. 5 stars. As a 5'4" female school teacher, most people don't expect me to have a wealth of knowledge about the NBA. I've been a huge fan and follower of my hometown Sixers, tragically, for many years. But Slam and Jam started my love for basketball podcasts. For the last 3 years, I've been a student of the game, and now I get to show everyone up with my knowledge. Andrew and Alex, thanks for creating a basketball podcast for every level of NBA fan. This teacher says, keep up the amazing work. That might be one of my favorite reviews we've ever gotten. That was really very nice. Appreciate you guys listening and tuning in this week. Hope you guys enjoy the weekend and the basketball, and we will talk to you guys again next Saturday.